Today's lecture will be over Chapter 17, Section 2. Objectives. Number 1, describe how Russia is changing its economic system. Number 2, identify obstacles to reforming Russia's economy. First thing we're going to look at today is we're going to look at privatization. After the Soviet Union collapses, Russia is going to embrace capitalism. What they do is that they remove price controls in 1992. Now, people would think that this would be a good thing, the government not telling you exactly what to do. But the problem is that the prices that are actually going for a loaf of bread are going to increase 250%. People don't know what the prices are, so they just try to make as much money as they can. What happens is that this inflation continues to cripple Russia's economy because people aren't able to make that money. They're not able to buy the food that they need. They're not able to buy the things that they need, and so they basically are going to cripple their own economy. Also in 1992, Russia begins a process of privatization. They're going to sell the government-owned businesses to private individuals and companies, but people have not been used to running their own companies. They haven't been used to running their own farms, and so they don't really know how to do it. Publics are going to buy businesses with vouchers to be repaid with future profits. United States did something like this, similar to this, when we looked at the stock market crash in 1929. What we did was that in the United States, we bought stocks that we thought were going to go up, and we bought them on something that was called margin. Well, what happened was that, of course, some of the stocks didn't go up, and people didn't have collateral to back it up, and they basically ruined the economy. Well, same thing happens here in 1998. Businesses are going to fail, the vouchers are basically not repaid, and so now all of a sudden, the economy starts going down and down and down. Still, by about 2000, 60% of the workforce employees are going to be in the private sector. So, what we see is that since the 1998 crash, Russia's economy is very slow to recover. In spite, about 40% of Russians still fall below the poverty line, which is a huge number, meaning that they are not making the money that they'd like to. Some are going to wonder if things had been better under the Soviet Union, which is going to lead to some fear with the United States, because people that are talking about communism or Russia going back to communism, that's going to lead to some things that kind of scare the United States people. Now, we also have distance decay, and what this is that this is an increasing distance between places tend to reduce interaction among them. So, the Soviet Union is a very big country, and so what we see is that the further you live away from the capital, the less likely that you are going to have interactions with them. What it also means is that you are going to be less likely to adopt the culture. We actually see this in Nebraska when we look at western Nebraska to eastern Nebraska. There have actually been people that have wanted the panhandle to break away from Nebraska and be kind of encompassed into Wyoming. The reason is that they live closer to the capital and they feel a little bit more like Wyoming people. Obviously that's not going to happen, but that's an example of distance decay. Long distance communication, transportation is hard. Russia, being so big, spans 11 different time zones, has 89 regional governments. The central government in Moscow is weak, and it's difficult to basically enforce all of these programs that they're trying to do. Now, one thing Vladimir Putin did in 2000 is that he's going to create 7 large districts, federal districts, that basically are trying to enforce these different reforms that he's going to be trying to do. Now, last but not least, looking at organized crime. Russia, what they have is they have the Russian Mafia, and this is going to be a criminal organization growing rapidly since the 1990s. Now, why is this important? Because this organized crime is going to control 40% of private companies, 60% of state-owned companies. The Mafia creates its own economy and expands outside of Russia. Now, one thing that they talk about when they start talking about organized crime is that usually organized crime thrives when the countries that they're involved in are not making much money. So the more money you're making, the more likely you're going to be able to get away from this organized crime. But this shows right here that there's a lot of problems in Russia. Organized crime slows economic reform by rewarding illegal activity. Government can't tax the things that are going on, and this is what you're going to see problems. However, future prospects, rising tax, customs revenues could lead to a higher standard of living, or at least that's what Russia is hoping for. This concludes Chapter 17, Section 2. Please complete the assessment at this time.